r/NoSleep. Posted by u/Shribin_04 to 1389. My friend and I sneaked into a mall playground. Now we can't leave. When I was a kid back in the 90s, my mom used to take me to the mall with her. After we finished shopping, my mom would take me to a McDonald's. It was my favorite place to go. And it wasn't for the food. I didn't like the food that much. I loved to go to the newly created playground. It was huge. It had a slide and those big structures that had a maze and slides connected to them. And my favorite of them all was the ball pit. It was always full of children playing inside. I used to play for hours on end in that playground. One day I called my best friend Mark, who lived in my neighborhood. I told him I had a fun idea. We should sneak into the mall playground. He agreed with my plan. We agreed to meet at the local park. I packed some water bottles, a flashlight and chips into my backpack. I then took off outside and told my mom that I'm going to Mark's place. She was busy talking on the phone, so she didn't listen to what I said and just said okay. I met Mark when we went to the kindergarten together, and since then we have been best friends. Mark was a good friend and always wanted to hang out with me. After we meet in the park, we saw our friends from school playing in the park, so we went to play with them. It started getting dark outside, so one by one of our friends went home. But we decided to continue with our plan. When we went inside the mall, there were still people inside. We went straight to the mall playground. There were parents with their kids there, so we easily entered and started playing with the kids. We had so much fun. We were playing with some kids in the mazes and we got tired, so we fell asleep. After we woke up, the playground was empty. There were no kids outside. And the mall was closed. I called my mom on my phone. When she answered, she asked me where I was. I told her I am in the mall and it closed. She just told me to find somewhere to sleep and she will come to pick me up when she got off work. Mark got the same answer from his mom. So we played in the playground some more. We ate our chips and drank some water. We used the employee bathrooms when we had to. After a while, we went to sleep. I was woken up by some loud noise. Mark was still sleeping. The noise looked like it came from outside McDonald's. I went to investigate. I slowly went to the front of the store. I looked outside. The outside was still lit by a lamp at the entrances. There was nothing outside. So I made the stupidest mistake of my life. I went outside to be sure that no one is in the mall. At that moment I might have thought that maybe there was some mall guard or an employee that can help us leave and get home. So I went outside and started looking around the mall. It was dark in the mall, but I used my flashlight to get around the place without getting lost. I looked around the shops, but they were all closed. And then I heard the noise coming from one floor below me. I went down the stairs to the first floor. As I was going down, I heard the bathroom door closing. I went to the bathroom and slowly opened the door, and I saw a pair of feet under one of the stalls. The person inside was talking to themselves, in some gibberish. At this moment I realized that this person wasn't well, or he was crazy. And then my phone rang and the man stopped talking. I looked at the phone and I saw it was Mark who was calling. Before I quickly turned the phone off. I expected that the man was going to run outside when he heard my phone. But no. The stall's door stayed closed, and judging by his shoes he was still in the same position. Then I heard a whistle and I looked up, and the man was watching me, and I saw his head looking down at me. I screamed and ran out of the bathroom. I ran to my floor and I went inside the McDonald's, hoping he doesn't find me. I went to find Mark and he was sleeping. I woke him up and told him there was a crazy man in the mall. We stayed quiet and listened carefully. After 1 hour I heard the window at the entrance breaking. So we hid inside one of the mazes. The man enters the playground and he began to speak. He said in a deep voice, "I will find you." And he started looking for us. He first went to the ball pit. He jumped inside and started diving, thinking we were somewhere inside. He looked for a few minutes but gave up. Then he saw us in the maze and he started laughing like a maniac. He struggled to get inside, giving us time to run. There was a section of the maze that was connected by a tube. We went through it and the man tried to get through as well, but he was too big and couldn't fit inside. Seeing this, the man did not give up and quickly ran to the other side so he can get us. So we went through the tube a couple of times to avoid the man. And in the end, we just stayed in the tube because the man couldn't get us while we were inside. We stayed in the tube until morning, when the police came and arrested the man. He turned out to be some homeless person who was on some drugs, and he somehow managed to get inside the mall and not get noticed. After it was all done, I was grounded by my mom for the entire month. Mark got the same punishment like me. But I was just happy that we survived. The next story of this video. Posted by u/Twister_22. My first day in Dogwood. Intuition is a funny thing, isn't it? At least I think so. That rock in the pit your stomach telling you that something just isn't right. That chill that you feel just on the nape of your neck right before fight or flight kicks in. That feeling of panic leaving you more confused than anything because you don't know why it's there. It just is. So you think, when you should act, and in thinking you make excuses. It's just my nerves. I didn't eat breakfast this morning. I'm just being paranoid. There's nothing to worry about. I'm just overanalyzing the situation. However, that feeling persists and that rock in your stomach never goes away. By the time you realize that you should have listened, that you should have acted, that you shouldn't have ignored that little voice in the back of your head, it'll have been too late. There's a certain duality about intuition in that everyone possesses it. That same feeling telling you to run away, could be the very same thing telling the other guy to grab you. Largely it comes down to who acts first. Who will listen and who won't. Which has the strength to turn intuition into instinct. This is the factor that decides those of us who will survive in my line of work and those of us who won't. However, I digress. I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Solomon Knight and I'm a detective here at DWPD, that's Dogwood Police Department. If you haven't heard of Dogwood, I can't say I blame you. With all the weird shit that goes down around here, I wouldn't put it past the powers that be to keep this place off the map. Though I doubt this town would be hustling and bustling otherwise. Suffice to say, our small town is just that, a small town. With a population size of about 6,000 people, everyone knows everyone. And everyone's in everyone else's business. So naturally I was the talk of the town for quite a while after I got transferred here. It was about a year ago I rode into town on a bus, because of course they don't have an airport. Not that my old department would have gotten me a ticket. Disgraced as I was. I hopped off the bus onto a dirt road with a building that looked like a terminal on the other side. I was a little pissed that bus hadn't taken me all the way into town, but hey, at least I was here finally. The 8-hour ride from Chicago was hell on my back and I was eager to just find a bed to lay on. After 5 minutes of walking I reached the entrance of the terminal building. Or at least what was left of it. To my surprise the doors were completely shattered, wood and glass littered the ground beneath my feet and as far as the light would permit me to see on the inside. The top of the door frame was missing along with about 3 feet of brick wall above it. It looked like the doors were ripped out of their hinges as something colossal barreled inside. At first I thought that the building was just old and falling apart from years of neglect and abandonment. However, that didn't match with what I saw on my approach to the place. On the outside the building didn't look worn down at all. It actually looked relatively new with shining panes of glass and fresh red bricks standing firm. I kneeled down and inspected the destroyed entrance further. There were deep gashes about where the hinges of the door would have been and also along the walls further on the inside. I could see thick black fur sticking to these gashes and I pulled out a tuft to get a closer look. I wasn't any kind of animal expert, but my best guess was a wolf or maybe a bear. All I could really tell was it stunk like day-old roadkill and something else. Something sweet. I was knocked out of my daze of inhaling dead animal when I heard something shatter inside the building. I rose to my feet quickly, my hand kissing my belt as I reached for my service pistol instinctively. I grimaced as I only found air. I forgot that I had turned my gun in back in Chicago, along with my badge, so I was left defenseless. I stood firm knowing that I couldn't outrun any animal in a wide open space like this. I took out my cell and started dialing the police. All the while keeping my sights on the darkness steeping inside the building. No signal. Alright, but there should be a landline inside somewhere. Though, most likely I would have to deal with whatever did this to the door and barehanded at that. It didn't take much thought. I turned around and started back toward the road to head to town. I only got 2 steps away before I heard her scream. It was a sickening, deafening scream, only cut short by a thick thump. I turned and bolted into the building without so much as a thought. I hadn't realized that someone may have actually been in the building. That some person could have been in danger. I took every twist and turn trying to guess at where the scream might have came from. It was only after the darkness had consumed me and I was deep inside the bowels of the building that I realized I had no idea where I was going. I stopped to take a look around and just like I thought, I was completely lost. The darkness was so overwhelming it was a miracle I had ran for so long without smacking into a wall. I had to take out my phone just to get a good look at my surroundings. I was in a long hallway with tile floors and rows of doors on either side. Non-functional overhead lights sunk into the ceiling above. In front of me was only darkness and behind me more the same. The darkness was oppressive, almost palpable, like you could reach out with a glass and have a drink of it. Though it was more like it was drinking me. I felt consumed within these walls. In this blackness. Knock knock knock. I damn near jumped out of my shoes when I heard the soft tapping coming from the door just to the right of me. I quickly shone my phone at the door as the knocking continued. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I asked. "Yes, hello? I need help. Can you open the door?" A small girl's voice called back from the other side. "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll get you out," I yelled back as I grabbed the doorknob, but then I stopped. A shock pierced the nape of my neck like being woken up by a bucket of ice water, and with the accompanying paranoia, something just didn't seem right. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "It's Amelia." "How old are you, Amelia?" "I'm scared, can you please just open the door? I want to be free." "Can you try opening the door from your side?" I heard a slight rustling like someone trying to turn a doorknob that wouldn't budge. "I am, but I think it's jammed or something. Can you try? I'm really scared." I took my hand away from the doorknob and began backing away slowly. Fear and adrenaline began to pump through my veins once more as pieced together why I felt this lost little girl was so wrong. My first thought was most lost little kids yell for their parents or oftentimes just cry. This one was asking to be freed. Almost like she was a prisoner. No crying, not even a whimper, in fact her voice sounded more even than mine. Secondly, and most importantly, and most frighteningly, I didn't feel the doorknob move. If she was really trying to turn the doorknob I would have felt the movement on the other side. I had my hand on it the whole time. Whoever or whatever was on the other side of that door was trying to trick me by just making the sounds I wanted to hear. "Why are you backing away? Are you going to leave me too?" The girl's voice snapped me out of my train of thought. "I'm going to go get help," I stammered out in a much weaker voice than I had wanted, still taking steps away from the door. "Don't leave me," the girl yelled out in a much deeper voice than before. What was once soft taps became thunderous pounds as whatever it was on the other side tried to break through. I took off into a full sprint in the other direction. As my feet pounded the hard tile below, the only thought in my head was to get away from that damn door and whatever was lurking on the other side. I ran for what seemed like hours until I found an open door and ducked off inside of it. I didn't give the room so much as a second glance before I found a desk to hide behind. I sat down and tried my phone again to see if I could call someone. But when I looked down at the screen I noticed something was wrong. I came to this town on Monday morning, sometime around 9 a.m., my phone was showing that it was now Wednesday evening. How could that be? I was only in this place for what felt like a couple of hours at most. How could I have lost so much time? I turned the flashlight on myself and found that I was coated in the same dust and grime that covered this place. I slapped my hands together and rubbed my arms to try and get the dust off, but the stuff was stuck to my skin and clothes. In a final attempt to get this shit off me I drew a breath and blew at my hands. A huge puff of that same dust exited my lips. I could feel the dry and grainy filth climb out of my throat as I blew. You could almost mistake it as smoke before it fell down and settled onto the floor just in front of me. What the hell was happening to me? I tried to get up but my legs felt weak. My whole body felt heavy and slow. With great effort I slumped my chest on top of the desk I had been crouching beneath. I looked over to the door I had just came through and saw that it was slowly creaking closed. Panic set in as I thought about the little girl and what I had saw just minutes before. Would I be forever trapped inside this place? Wanting and begging for some poor stranger to release me? I shuddered at the thought and tried to push it out of my head completely. It took all of my might and willpower to force my legs to move. It felt like I was wading water in the deepest part of the ocean, but I had to move. Tufts of thick dust filled the room as I breathed heavier and heavier, trying to reach the door. I looked down at my feet and saw that they were no longer there. Only black void sunk into the floor. The building was sucking me in. I could feel myself getting shorter as my calves were engulfed. I was only a few feet away from the door, but it was only just a crack open now. Through that crack I could see a small sliver of light. I knew that if I could just get through that damn door I would be saved. So I pooled all my remaining strength into one final leap. I could feel the hard tile and ground break away from my feet as I leapt. I closed my eyes and braced myself as I smashed shoulder first into the door. I felt nothing and for a moment I thought I had failed, that I was just a second too late, that I would be forever trapped in this place, that is until I hit the ground. I smacked the ground hard and opened my eyes to a starry night sky soaked in dull moonlight. "Detective Knight?" I heard a woman's voice behind me. I scrambled to my feet readying myself for anything. "Calm down there, super cop. You're safe now," the woman said holding a hand up. "I'm Sheriff Ling of the Dogwood Police Department." She offered her hand. I took it cautiously. "Hell of a first date, huh?" she said in an almost friendly tone. "Something like that." "Well, Welcome to Dogwood Detective Night. Get used to it.